Yo, what is going on, my fellow weebs? Chrono here, and welcome back to the channel. So today's just a quick PSA update, just what you should be paying attention to when you want to clear out ZME's shop if you're keeping up with your points over in PSO2. But if you guys are new here, as always, my name is Chrono from Recover PSO2 content. Would much appreciate a subscribers working way towards that 10K mark, hopefully by the end of this year. Anyway, let's go ahead and jump into this. So the ZME shop is pretty straightforward for most people that have been playing for quite some time, but as my channel does reach newer players, repeatedly I get questions about what they should be spending their actual points on, or what you guys should be paying attention to. So for some of you guys, it's going to be, hey, I obviously know what I should be buying, so on and so forth. For those of you guys who support the content, I appreciate you. Just toss a like on the video, maybe leave it on in a tab in the background and mute the tab, let it run, so on and so forth. Or a like is enough, a comment's enough. I appreciate you guys all the same regardless. But this video most likely just isn't for you. As far as those of you guys who aren't 100% sure on what you should be keeping an eye on, what you should be picking up, maybe you came from my video where I went through the entire game in about 10 hours and pushed a character from very beginning all the way to end game, and you're curious, hey, what should I spend my points on since I've been farming deck space like you mentioned, and have gathered up tons and tons of points. What you guys will find is I haven't farmed at all since my first farming session at the very beginning of this event, and I've got about 800,000 points that I can go ahead and spend. That doesn't count in the ones I've already spent on some of the stuff, as there have been weekly refreshes, or every 2 weeks there've been a refresh, and we're on our second refresh, meaning our third inventory of stuff with this Emmy. And I've actually bought out pretty much all the cosmetics and star gems and all that good stuff already. So I'm going to talk with you guys about what you should be paying attention to, what you should be buying, depending upon where you are in your journey in PSO2. So I'm going to scroll over to the bottom really quick. This is the things I've already purchased. There's things I actually recommend you always buy no matter what the situation is. So always buy out your anniversary SP scratch tickets. You may not care too much about the actual items in the scratch, but it is star gems, so it's always worth getting a hold of if you haven't already gotten these. And when I say it's star gems, basically if you take a look at the actual scratch, pull it up here really quick. So you guys might be hearing my keyboard. My sound setup has not been as good as it's been in the past, so I got a few changes to go ahead and make. So the anniversary special scratch ticket, go over to the prize list, and we pop over down here. You can see 100 star gems is in the list in here, and you're probably thinking, oh, well, there's no guarantee that I'll get it. Of course not. However, every time you pull, I believe it's up to 30. I want to say it's 30 in the anniversary special scratch. You're able to go ahead and grab one item for free that you want to go ahead and get. If there is nothing in here that you care too much about, like I liked these two camos were actually really, really cool. This one actually color changes to match your outfit, while this one specifically is red, so it has a red aura and a red photon color, which I thought was really, really cool. This is for Partisan and Wand, so in case you guys are on that end, feel free. Sort of same thought process. I believe this also, yeah, color matches, so that's pretty chill. I like it a lot. But if there's any camos in here you guys are after, you really, really like, go ahead and make sure you pick those up. I always say go for the fashion items when it comes to these scratches first. And if there's nothing else you really care about in here, go ahead and use those, one-time grab one item you want tickets on star gems. Every essentially 30 pulls is 100 guaranteed star gems. And that's not to mention if you don't get the free 10 or 20 star gems in the mix, or just happen to hit the 100 star gems in that pull. So it is very important to go ahead and get those taken care of, because it is going to help keep your star gem count as high as possible. The star gems are very, very important when it comes to PSO2. So we grab those. What else are we going to be looking at getting? I personally make it a point to grab all of the event cosmetics. This is just a personal preference. You do not have to do this at all. You can skip cosmetics if you really don't care about them, but I do collect event cosmetics, so I will go ahead and grab them here. I do believe these are also sellable, so if you want to just save your points and purchase them off of the market, they're usually fairly cheap. People will buy them and then sell them for some reason. I don't know why. They're usually not worth very much since everyone can get a hold of them. Some people hold on to them for longer periods of time and then sell them if they feel like they're going to be worth money, later on down the line. But keep in mind, things do get reintroduced, and that will drive the prices down. So be very careful if that's something that you personally are doing. Afterwards, of course, like I said, there's accessories, so just more cosmetics. The other big ticket items to grab, if you don't really care about the motions or anything along those lines, are going to be, of course, they added vital gauges too to make it even more difficult, but they're just straight up star gems. Go ahead and make sure you grab your star gems. This is always going to be important. No matter how small the amount of star gems are, it's always worth to go ahead and pick up some of those star gems. The effort may not always be worth it, but when it comes to these points, you get them so easily, it's definitely worth buying your star gems out from the shop. Afterwards, we have special scratch tickets. These pretty much speak for themselves. Much like the anniversary special scratch tickets will allow you to get star gems. You have the chance of getting them, as well as you can use your guaranteed one pull from the actual scratch to get the 100 star gems. So always pick these up. You get less of them, but it is always worth grabbing these if it's just for points. Now, I always make it a point to grab these specific resources. You don't have to. Photon quartz and photon scales are a little bit easier to come by nowadays. Lazardium and Fernium, they aren't too difficult, and you can see I have quite a bit of of all of these. But essentially, these resources are kind of like the quote-unquote rare resource of the individual region, going from Aleo to Kavaris, Aleo to Redham to Kavaris, and then to Stia. And these are used a lot of times in grading or capsules or exchanging capsules, so it's worth having a good stock of them. Now, these have a little bit less of a value since they introduced mine into the game, and you can get a lot of resources from mine in, especially when the event Stellar Graces and stuff like that come out. You tend to get a lot of resources from there too. So you can skip over these if you'd like. I tend to grab them; they're not super expensive, so I find them to be very worth. Aegis Integra, always worth grabbing as far as I'm concerned, because we're always hurting for Aegis souls when you're doing combines. So making sure you have a good stock of Aegis Integra is not a bad thing. Granted, you can always skip over this if you happen to have tons and tons and tons of Neos A weapons, or no, yeah, Neos A weapons from farming the current content. Something like what is it, Dalian? Yeah, that's the word I'm looking for. Farming Dalian. You have tons of Neos A's from that. You can technically skip over some Aegis Integras, but again, this is just something you can pick up for points. Very easy, very straightforward. I grab X cubes. Again, this is something if you do a lot of farming, you probably have tons and tons of X cubes, especially if you don't swap characters or swap classes a whole lot. If you're someone who plays at your max level all the time, you're leveling up over and over again, you're getting X cubes consistently, you're going to have quite a few X cubes. Now, if you are trading in your X cubes like I do for other things, it's going to, your X cube stocks tend to dwindle. So not a bad idea to go ahead and pick some of these up. They are actually pretty much worth the time to go ahead and get, but it's okay to skip over these if you feel like you have enough X cubes. I never feel like I have enough any resources, so I always overbulk and overstock. Master cubes are a absolutely no-brainer. Always get master fragments, because they combine into master cubes, and then master cubes, of course, always pick those up as well, because you are going to be able to then grab a hold of your level 10, your guaranteed level 20 add-on skills. And if you're not sure of how add-on skills work, I have a video explaining that on the channel. Feel free just to search add-on skills on the channel itself. You'll go ahead and get information on how add-on skills work. But what these do is, along with 1 million Meseta, it guarantees you a level 20 add-on skill of all 3 slots. So level 20 of main, and then 2 sub slots, of course, that are rolled randomly. So these are very valuable. Always pick these up when they're available. I buy these out just because I have been leveling up the TA customizations, but I honestly don't feel like they're worth it because you can get these from a lot of other locations. However, if you're farming out money, you're going to have so many seasonal points, it's not going to matter really that much. So it is not a bad time to go ahead and pick these up along with it as well, but I would put these on a very low priority. Gigas are almost always in a situation where you never get enough of them. So I would always pick these up. I actually need to go up and buy the other ones as well. I have some more that I can buy since they did the refresh. So I would recommend picking these up no matter what the situation is. They are very expensive because there are the refreshed ones. But I would highly recommend picking up those Gigas of all stats, just because you can combine them into Gigas Mass Day, which can combine into Gland Gigas Mass Day. So that's that's basically one of the best in slot augments in the game. So definitely recommend picking these up. They're always going to be worth your points. Dreadkeeper, it's a little bit of a weird spot because Grand Dreadkeeper has been pushed out of the best in slot setup at the moment, in favor of a Mega Trial. If you have a high amount of Fixa Fatale, if you're a little lower on Fixa Fatale, let's say your best in slot isn't using Fixa Fatale, let's say you're a Ranger and you're using Wix, or say you're a Forcer using Wix, then you may want to opt to keep Grand Dreadkeeper. But in those situations where you're using like Fatale 4 and you are pushing your weapon up higher, it's no longer in the best in slot lineup, so Grand Dreadkeeper has been pushed out. However, we are about to get a 7th slot that we just saw from the new headline, so it's possible it could be useful again. However, keep in mind, we also don't know if the new EX augments are going to take up our 7 slots that we have access to. I know people are talking about, oh, it definitely will, but there's no confirmation. And while I do think that is the case, I'm not going to confirm anything that we don't know until it actually releases. So err on the side of caution, take it with a grain of salt. But GDK is probably not going to be something that's going to be that beneficial anymore. And even then, Dreadkeeper 5s as well as Dreadkeeper 4s have not really been the best to spend your points on as far as monetary gains. So do this with a grain, take it with a grain of salt. It's up to you realistically. It's not a bad thing to go ahead and stock up on some of these things because they can be useful in the future, but they shouldn't be a priority, at least in my opinion. And don't augment Dreadkeeper 5. It's not something you ever want to augment. If Grand Dreadkeeper is not going to be that useful moving forward, you'd think 8% potency floor is that useful. It is not. Actually, I'd argue that Grand Dreadkeeper is fine if you want to augment for defensive purposes. In that situation, please, please, please do not use Dreadkeeper 5. It's not good. Picking up the Gold Prim Sword plus 60s are always going to be very beneficial. These are fantastic to go ahead and do this because they actually are already level 80 unlocked. And while we have the current event going on, you can actually push these up to 80 so you can bind these with all the raw, just random base swords that you happen to pick up while you're doing content, and guarantee great successes and bank those for upgrades later. I have a video going over why you should do this, so check that out. And then I have a follow-up video going over how to do this because people saw my PSA video and their question was, well, why do I do this process? Didn't really think there needed to be a video for that process, but I went ahead and made a video for it regardless, showing that as well. So if I remember, I'll leave a link in the video description, but if not, it should be on the channel. So just keep that in mind. TLDR, pick up your Gold Prim Sword 2s and use them, stock them up. Endemios are just Gold Prim Sword 2s or Gold Prim Armor 2s without the weapon or armor attached. You can use them directly as they are, but I actually don't recommend doing that. Flipping them over to the weapon, though it takes a little bit more of an input, it does still give you a little bit more of a benefit. So Endemios are just faster to just use all as is, but smashing them into your Gold Prim Sword 2 plus 60s as swords is still the better way of doing things. So I recommend going ahead and picking those up. Definitely useful. I shouldn't have to explain alpha reactors. Alpha reactors are money. Get them as long as you have the points for them. They are going to be beneficial because money is always beneficial. And then augmentation success rate plus 10% is actually pretty low on the totem pole if you're not doing a whole lot of augmenting. I always pick them up just to make sure I never run low because I do a lot of RNG augmenting and just random augmenting for some other weapons occasionally. And I don't want to use the good stuff like 15s and 20s. So having good stock of these 10s is not a bad thing and is fairly inexpensive. So from the things I didn't purchase, we have some materials here. In the past, I would have said this is actually really good to go ahead and pick up these materials. But with the recent changes to how much GP you can acquire in a day, and how much you can farm realistically, so on and so forth, like the GP shop gives you a lot of these materials, mining gives you a ton of these materials. Like you really don't need to purchase them from here realistically. You can if you want to just keep them stocked up that much. Some of these materials are very good to use while you're combining augments to make higher tier augments, and you do need thousands upon thousands of them. As you can see, I have 18,000 Dolomite, but I only have 6,000 Monetite. It's probably because I use Monetite for something at some point, but haven't gotten around to using Dolomite yet. So it's something to keep in mind that you can go ahead and stock up on these, but they aren't very high on the totem pole. This is more of like I'm buying out the shop and I want to go ahead and finish this out. I haven't even grabbed my extra Blizzardium and Infernium yet, so that's kind of funny. Icicle Cube 2, Icicle Orb 2s, and Icicle Cubes are all used for making Rayar weapons. Realistically, we're past Rayar at this point. I wouldn't even recommend Rayar to a new player at the moment, unless they were already like mostly through making it. And honestly, even then, I probably would recommend they just stop and go ahead and move on to something else. Unless you're someone who's going for a high fixa on your Rayar and you already have like a Rayar fixa 4 or something like that, and you desperately need to make more Rayars, I would skip over all of these 100%. You may be in the camp of people that think that, it's possible that they may have some other use for this in the future, and you could be right, but there is no current reason why you would put your time into grabbing these. They're not very expensive, but they also aren't going to really do anything for you at the moment, so I would skip over them 100%. Growth mints are a bit of a weird spot because you just end up getting so many of them over your time playing. You really don't need to buy even more of them from here. Like 900, this is silly, 900k points to get other 600 growth mint 2s. I don't need them. Now granted, if you're someone who is upgrading yours over, you're slamming them together consistently, you're buying them out of the shop, so on and so forth, then yeah, sure, it might be worth going and grabbing these growth mints. But I'd also argue just farm more Lucille. Like you have the chance of getting the weapon you need, you also have the chance of getting a high fixa that you're looking for. I don't think this is really worth your time as far as investing points in whatsoever. Growth mint ones are the exact same. So over time, you're just going to get to a point where you have tons of these. Let's say you're early on, you're a newer player, you're going for this over because you don't really feel like you're going to be able to get the 11 star, which I think you're going to be able to get the 11 star anyway. It's coming out next week, so I wouldn't even recommend building a Zova now at this point, unless there's like some pretty heavy battle power requirement to getting into that piece of content. I would wait till next week and find out. But it's like the only situations if you need a few more growth mints to buy the Zova that you need to go ahead and build up. I could foresee that situation being the case, and even then, again, I would highly recommend just farm the seal. Dread scales. The dread scale shop isn't as useful as it was beforehand. You could argue that, you know, there's some things in there that are useful that you can go ahead and grab a hold of, but you just tend to get dread scales from everywhere else in the game. So it's not super high up on the priority list, but it is something that I would go ahead and buy out because it is still a semi-useful resource, and sometimes does have a shop that can be useful, and they may upgrade that shop itself, so they may update it for some other things. So I'd go ahead and recommend doing that. If you haven't even bought our master fragments, always buy your master fragments. Photon chunk A, B, arms refiners 1 and 2s. Over your time playing, you're going to get tons of these. So unless you specifically need them for upgrading a weapon or piece of armor right now, don't focus too much on them. They literally drop in mining. So I would grab what you need to go ahead and upgrade the stuff you're working on, and that's it. The Defi series augments, only purchase them if you absolutely need them. That's just the long and short of it. They made them substantially less expensive. They made it so you can buy 40, so basically you can set up a weapon and 3 pieces of armor. Just pick these up if you don't have your set already made. If you do have your set already made, unless you plan on replacing one of your pieces of armor or something along those lines, it's not worth your time. There may be a situation where some of these might be worth some money. I haven't looked into them personally. Usually it's the crit value ones that are worth some money. You can always take a look at that. But with everyone being able to access this and it being so easy for you to farm points, if you're looking at it from a points cost perspective, it's not really worth your time. I would just skip over it altogether. LC augments. So LC augments are not a bad purchase. It's if you need those specific LC augments, but again, these come from everywhere in the game. Like you get tons of these all over. So I would only recommend putting your points into these if you absolutely need like something else. Like let's say, for example, you're at, I don't know, your Gladius-Soul, you have like 7 and you need 2 more to get to 8 or to get to 10. You shouldn't even be getting to 10. You should be getting to 9 of these actually. But let's say you need like 1 or 2 extra. Then I would go ahead and pick these up from here. Maybe you're new and you're farming and you are short just a couple, but you can farm a ton of seasonal points. Then sure, go ahead and pick these up here. These aren't really stockpile worth. You're going to get tons and tons and tons of LC augments over your time playing, so I wouldn't bother. The one I can make an argument for are these Spiro, Wardrow, and Guaro trials. It might be worth picking these up and stockpiling them to make the mega trial, but even then, not really. A lot of these aren't worth very much. The prices may have gone up a little bit, but not enough to warrant really caring that much about stockpiling them. And again, you're going to get tons of them from drops anyway, so nothing you need to worry too much about. Mastery 4, if you're in the camp that thinks Mastery 5 is coming, keep stocking your Mastery 4s, boys. That's pretty much all I can tell you. If you think Mastery 5 is on the horizon, then by all means, go for it. I'm not really stocking it unless I just happen to have tons of extra over points that I don't need to spend on anything else. We talked about Gigas already, we talked about Dread already. And if nothing else, if you've purchased out the entire shop, you have everything else that you need, start buying stacks of grinders. Grinders are not worth a whole lot, but you can go ahead and just vendor them when you need some extra cash. So it's just something to have, something to blow your points on. And that's the entire shop. That's pretty much everything I would spend points on in the order I would look into spending it. It isn't an exact order. I just kind of went over everything and talked about if it was important or not. Hopefully this does help some of you guys out there who aren't 100% sure what you should be putting your points into. And those of you guys who maybe have been using your points for the longest time, maybe might have opened your eyes to something you may not have considered. It is worth mentioning there is a recycle shop here that is available for SG Scratch items. I wouldn't burn all of your SG Scratch, I don't want to say tickets, badges in here, because SG Scratch badges can be very useful. But it is worth mentioning that these are here. Some of these are sellable. As you can see, I'll tell you if it's not tradable in the market. Hang on, let's see. So 2 is tradable, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 is non-tradable, 9 is tradable, 10 is non-tradable, 11 is tradable, 12 is tradable. So those are sellable on the market. It might be worth you dropping some of your SG Scratch tickets or SG Scratch badges into getting these. So, I mean, you guaranteed get 1 a day, if not more. So it's up to you at the end of the day, but I would be very, very careful about dropping all of my points here, because you do still want to pick up some of the other important things like getting a hold of your protections. But that's it. Let me know if there's anything I missed, if there's anything else that would help you guys out. Feel free to let me know in the comments below. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe when you keep up with more. I'll see you next time. Take care, my friends. Peace out.